Welcome back to the Student Hub Live Freshers event. Well, we thought about what students need to know most when they join the Open University, and we've got a whole programme that's going to cover all of the various things. But we were thinking, well, really, the key thing is, what do we wish that we knew when we started out? So I've invited some students to come along and share their inspiration with you. We've got Rob, Claire and Gemma. What are you all studying?
Well, I'm studying for a degree in psychology.
Okay.
I'm studying for a Master's in Environmental Management.
Wow.
I just finished the postgraduate certificate in educational leadership and about to start the MBA.
Wow, excellent. Okay, so a lot of variety here. Now, I mean, I remember when I was an OU student and some of the things that I keep wishing I'd done, and you've given me a brilliant selection of tips and advice for students here. So we've sectioned them into some areas, and I wonder if we can share all of those. I mean, the key thing, which is something that Liz mentioned earlier, is managing your time and time planning, which you've all highlighted as really, really important. Claire, what's the most important thing for you about managing your time?
Just the security of knowing what I'm wanting to do in each session. And, you know, we'll talk a bit later, and I'm sure about if things don't work out quite as you planned, it doesn't matter too much. It's, you know, planning is all about being something there to support you rather than being a straitjacket. But it's just about that security of knowing sort of where I want to be so that I can get the most out of each session.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I think you mentioned as well something about flexibility with planning. It's not like being rigid, is it? It's about working out when you can do things.
Yeah.
How do you plan your time, and what would you say to new students?
Yeah, well, it's definitely important to think about what you want to do each week and have an idea of the time you have. But it's also important, I think, not to beat yourself up about it. If you don't get that time that you'd planned, it's not the end of the world. You know, you'll find other things, other times you can do. Life gets in the way, doesn't it? And if you try to force doing a study at a particular time because that's what you've planned, it won't come.
Yeah. So how did you both get over that, and why would you say, like, when you'd started, was it a big thing for you in terms of thinking I've got to do this 8 hours, 16 hours, whatever it was, a week?
Yeah, I definitely thought, you know, I needed to be doing that, and I felt guilty if I didn't.
Yeah.
But actually, as I've gone through the years of studying, I've realised that just making every little moment count is also worthwhile. You don't have to say, right, I need a 2-hour slot.
Yeah.
If you can say, right, at this point in time, while I'm making the breakfast, making dinner, I can watch one of the video materials. That also counts towards it. So that really helped me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely I think that, you know, I completely agree that at first you think, oh, I've got to fit this in. How am I going to fit this in? Where am I going to split this up? And then, of course, if you get ill or, you know, have a holiday or something and you sort of, you know, suddenly that you're behind where you want it to be. But I think with sort of good time management in terms of knowing sort of the general areas of what your points are that you have to get to, whether it's a TMA, whether it's an EMA, whether it's just you need to post something on a forum by a particular point, and just sort of prioritising what you've got into the, you know, different length of session times that you have available.
Yeah. It sounds like some of it is about almost your expectations. I remember when I started studying, and I bought this beautiful book. It was really expensive, and that was my notes book, and I wasn't going to take notes in any other way other than in my notes book, and I was only going to study at a desk, and needless to say, it didn't really work, and I ended up being really, like, sort of constrained by this idea I had about what being a student and what taking notes looked like. It took me ages to eventually sort of realise that actually all the notes was recording something, and if it was on scrap bits of paper that I could collate into something, it was better than nothing. And it sounds like, you know, part of what you're saying is almost letting go of some of those expectations and thinking about what sort of student and what studying really means. You know, it doesn't have to be perfection.
No, absolutely. And I think it's, you know, in terms of letting go of that, it's also thinking, what can you do, like go for a run, for example, that helps all of that information to filter through. You know, some people would say, well, that's not studying, you're not studying while you're running. But actually it's been really important to me to allow the TMA question, you know, when I've got a TMA coming up, to think about how I want to approach it. I can do that while I'm running because I'm not thinking of anything else. So if you can find an activity that doesn't require you to use your brain, but that you can think and reflect on your studies while you do it, I think that's really good.
Yeah. And Claire, one of the things you've said is about not just doing the studying, but also having some time for wider things.
Yeah, definitely at I mean, particularly the master's level that I've come to, the wider reading that you can have, the better from the earlier on, because it's really important to get those quotes and get the understanding of, you know, which journal piece would fit in with the question that you've got in your head. And actually sometimes even just to refine the question that you're going to answer in your EMA at the end or whatever. And I did find that with my first module that I did, I sort of got to the end and was like, right, I'll start looking at things for my EMA. And it was a bit too late, really, because I was finding things right at the last moment that I would have liked to have put in. So the second module that I did, I made sure that I did a lot more sort of wider reading earlier on around, you know, my thoughts and my ideas on the question that I was going to be trying to answer. And, you know, you've got to make notes of what quotes would be good from where, whether it's on the journal article yourself, if you're able to print them out, or whether you sort of electronically note or whatever. But keep an idea of where the quotes are. But that kind of wider reading all kind of feeds into each other and gives you sort of more understanding of where you want to be at the end, and gives you hopefully a richer piece at the end of it as well.
Yeah, because it's that thinking time, I think, that's hard. Like, so often you read something and then you close it and you walk away and think, what was I reading? Where are my notes? How was that? Gemma, how, when you go for this run or walk or whatever, you know, you're sort of talking about building things in that you enjoy doing, how might you focus some of that into thinking time or problem solving, or how would you recommend students try and do that?
Yeah, I think it's about having sort of the theories and the ideas going through your head that you've been reading, you know, and really attaching it to the TMA question. What I've found really useful as well is just to talk through concepts and ideas with people that aren't studying. So you get a chance to put that across to someone who doesn't know the concept, and you can see then, are they getting this? Am I explaining it well? Do I understand it? And if they're asking you questions back, then it's prompting you to think about that concept and that theory, which I think really just takes all of those ideas and consolidates it for you.
Brilliant, excellent. Now, we've asked you at home to fill in some word clouds for us. Now, with these, you need 3 things, but if you can't think of 3 things, that's absolutely fine. Just put a full stop in or a cross and then press enter and your results will submit. We'd like to know what 3 words describe the student you want to be, what 3 words describe the student you will probably be, and also if there's anything that you really want to know about. So please fill those in and we'll feed those back. And we're going to talk about some hacks next, but let's take a quick trip to HJ and Michelle.
Well, we're having a great conversation. I think Davin had a good point in the chat that you should take time to rest as well, along with studying, just so you're all refreshed, you're not overwhelmed. And we're talking about a few things about what we do to rest. So Michael plays golf, but we decided he needs to use orange or purple balls, especially in the snow at the moment. Otherwise, it just doesn't work out. And Davin asked, does eating cake class as a hobby? He's got Student Hub Live approval for that one. Definitely.
Well, I said baking actually is a really good stress reliever. And if you're beating something up, it can get the stress out before you study. Just make sure you don't eat too many cakes.
I think Kerry's on the right track. I might have to join her for playing video games. We should set up a Student Hub Live video game group, because sleeping and playing video games sounds fantastic. I think that's a great hobby.
We do have a few people who are a little bit anxious. We've got some brand new students, so they're appreciating the tips and tricks that you guys are giving at the minute. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Excellent. Well, we asked you what type of student do you want to be. Let's take a look and see what you had to say. We'll come back to that in just a minute when we've got the results in. And if you haven't entered that, then please do put your thoughts in there. It can be anything. And if you can't think of 3 things, just put a full stop in and your results will submit. OK, let's see what you had to say. So successful is the big key thing there. Happy, diligent, realistic, dedicated, coping, cleverer. I love that. Passionate, non-procrastinating, expressive. So some wonderful words coming through there. I'd like to know as well what student you probably will be. So fill those in and we'll take a look at that in just a moment. Rob, you've given us some brilliant hacks and I really love them, because these are things I wish I'd sorted out and I still haven't. And if I had really early on, I would have been so much happier in my life, I'm convinced. So tell us some of the hacks that you've thought about in terms of what you would do right at the beginning and why that matters.
Sure. So I guess my favorite hack is one that I got from my wife, who just finished her master's with the OU, and that's to print off your TMA question or prompt and put it somewhere highly visible. So she would use hers as a bookmark. I'll usually tape mine to the bottom of my computer screen, and this just keeps me constantly thinking about what I'm going to be writing about and what I need to be thinking about when I'm reading the different module materials.
Yeah.
It's a really good tool
And
for me.
so simple.
Yeah, very simple. Just print off the question, have a look at it every day.
Yeah, sometimes I'll have students calling in various states of panic, and I'll say, right, what is the question? And I obviously know what the question is, but it's very interesting because they say, oh, and you think actually, you know, of course you're in a muddle because you don't have that sort of focus on it. So so that's a brilliant one.
You can usually look at your question from day one that you get access to the module website.
Yeah. So you print them off the assessment page, and then you have that question in a really prominent place, and you sort of use it to sort of shape your reading as well as when you're writing. Brilliant. I love that one. You also had a really good one about referencing, and we've got the library coming along later. They'll fill us all in on that. But yeah, this was one I wish I'd done.
That's going to be my tip, is head to the library website, because I know it's super helpful about choosing a bibliography software, and it's something I really wish I had done earlier on, because when it came time to doing the EMA, I'm just manually typing all these journal articles in myself, and you can just save yourself a lot of time if you just properly log what you're using and then use that software to put it in your assignment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Claire, you had a really good idea about mindfulness pauses.
Yes, it must be about 18 months ago now. A friend of mine introduced me to yoga, and then naturally I went through to being introduced to mindfulness as well. And there's something that they call a pause, which is either a 1 minute or a 2 minute. There's various different techniques of sort of body scans or focusing on your breathing or that kind of thing. And there's some brilliant free resources on FutureLearn actually about mindfulness and getting into mindfulness. And it just allows your brain, it's a bit like the run, but it allows your brain to stop, to sort of come back to sort of a central position. And that gives your brain then a chance to think about what you're actually wanting to get out of what you're doing, and it gives you a chance to sort of get back into it. So it's kind of for me, it's kind of a mode of relaxation and sort of almost resetting, you know, what I'm trying to do. So it works really well.
Brilliant, I love that idea. Right, the other thing we asked at home was what sort of student you think you will be. So let's take a look and see how that compares. Oh, good. Successful is still big up there. But other things coming in here, some not so positive words, things like tired, challenged, stressed, overwhelmed, distracted, frazzled, inconsistent, worried, spontaneous, outstanding, a last minute, unfocused. So there's very, very different ideas here, but some very good words as well, things like dedicated. Just while I'm saying that, I'm just thinking of the value associated with these sort of positive and negative type things. When you see that, is that sort of how you felt? You've got this idea in your head about being this good student, and then you think, actually, in reality, I'm probably not going to be so brilliant. And it sounds like I think we all have had ways of juggling stuff in and feeling like we're not quite winning it all, you know, and it's all that challenge of fitting it all in. What would you say to those students who sort of want one thing but think the reality might be a bit different?
I think for me, it's just don't be too hard on yourself. You can't, you know, stress out too much that you aren't being the perfect student that you wanted to be. Because yes, I think you're right, you have this idea in your head that you want to be this perfect student, but actually, you know, there is so many other things that happen in life that get in the way, that you're not going to gain anything through feeling guilty. You just need to think, right, well, how can I do what I need to do and get it done?
Yeah, because if you don't do it, nobody will. It's pulling yourself back up, isn't it?
I think definitely that actually doing things step by step, doing things in your own way, and learning whatever shape or form that happens to be, I think that's perfection. Because there's only one thing you can do, and that is put in effort. So, you know, see what you can do, see where you can push yourself, and, you know, before you know it, you'll be suddenly, you know, spouting things across the dinner table that you never even realised you remembered. So, you know, everybody's unique, everybody's an individual, and we all learn things in completely different ways. And in this day and age where mental health is a big topic of conversation, we all know that we've got to look after ourselves. And part of that is realising again, the yoga and the mindfulness is that you are enough, and what you're doing is enough, and that's what you need to do.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, Rob, you've got a point here which I really, really like, which relates to this. You say don't feel too bad about not adopting a digital approach. I think this is something that, you know, I know for a lot of older students, myself included, you can sometimes meet a package or software and think, oh, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get on with that. What's your advice for students about that, and why is that so important, especially considering that we are a distance digital university?
Exactly, and so when I started up with the OU, I was totally for adopting the complete digital approach. I was going to use OneNote, Evernote, highlight everything online, organize all my library downloads, and I quickly realized it just wasn't going to work for me. I needed to hold something. I didn't have textbooks, but I could print off the essential journal articles. So I'd print them off and highlight my notes, and I just found that way of studying was much better for me. I've still, of course, used the VLE and the forums online, but I needed something to hold and read to get away from a screen for a while, and that's completely fine.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it's about finding things that work for you and trial and error. You've got another one, before I move on to the next section, about highlighting as well. Now, I know that people can be obsessed with highlighting. In fact, sometimes it's just colouring in everything and not highlighting only a few random words. How do you highlight?
So I'll highlight sometimes a whole paragraph, but usually a specific quote that I want to use or a point that I want to remember. And this is where, if I had done a digital approach and just highlighted, I probably could have copied and pasted. But part of the learning for me is rewriting those quotes because that helps me solidify it in my mind. And so I'll have a typed list of quotes or points, and then I'll kind of help use that to help structure my TMA. No, I want this in this section, and so on. I found that really useful when I'm structuring my assignments.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, excellent. Now, comparing yourself to others, this is a sort of really, really important point, and it was something that you've all actually mentioned. It's something that naturally we do. Why is it so important not to compare yourself to other people?
As I said before, everybody's an individual, and we all learn things in very different ways, and in finding your own way, you can try things out. I've just gone through a period of weight loss, and I had to try different approaches to, you know, each week to see if it worked at the end of it. And it's exactly the same in studying. You try a different approach, you see, okay, well that worked, or actually this bit worked, but this bit didn't work for me. So I'm gonna, you know, take that bit forward and, you know, shelve that bit that didn't work, and then, you know, finding things out for yourself. So try different ways, try different techniques, definitely. And that includes sort of advice that you get from the forums and, you know, what other people do, and from ourselves as well. And then hopefully you'll find your own way of doing things, and that's what will then sort of keep you sort of mentally healthy about what you're doing, because, you know, you'll be finding your approach and your way, and you'll be, I'm sure everybody will surprise themselves about what they can do.
Yeah. I mean, we say don't compare yourself to others and you're all different, but how do you do that, and how practically, how can you stop that sort of very natural feeling of thinking, well, where am I in this group of people I don't even know who they are, you know?
Yeah, that was one of the biggest stresses for me, I think, when I first started studying, was I became a member of one of the Facebook groups. I was looking at the forums all the time. And, you know, it was, people were commenting where they were, what week they were on, and it was like, oh my God, I'm really behind. Yeah. And I was stressing out. But I think you've got to try and let go of that, and your mindset is about, right, well, I'm not them, you know, I'm where I am, and I feel happy that I'm making good progress, even if it's not as great as someone else, you know. It's just about putting that idea that you're doing well enough.
No, exactly. Okay, I want to talk about tutors as well, because this is another thing I think that, you know, again, you sort of learn with experience how to make the most of that. How have you all worked with members of staff at the Open University, and how have you used them to support you?
I've had really great experiences with my ALs. Yeah. I've been, you know, so lucky. I've had some really great ones, and they've always been happy for you to contact them. So it's making use of that and not feeling like you're imposing on them, because you can feel a little bit like that because you don't see them all the time. You might go to one or two tutorials, or you might not go to any, and therefore it feels like they're at arm's length, but actually they're not, and they really, really do want you to contact them if you're struggling. So I made full use of that, and it's been great.
What about you?
Yeah, I've definitely sort of pinged off a few emails when you things and you think, oh, hang on, which approach am I meant to be doing here, or what has somebody said about this or whatever. And I mean, definitely the other thing that I would say, if there's something that the tutor's given you advice about and you're still not clear about, then do ask, because particularly if it's written communication rather than a phone call, you know, somebody can think they've explained it so that you can understand, but actually there's still bits that you're not sure about. So, you know, do ask for clarification and make sure that you understand what you're needing to get out of that conversation.
Yeah, my physics teacher once said to me, anyone can understand anything, it just might take people longer and you might need something explained in a different way. Have you had that, Rob?
Yes, I think tutors are the best kind of acknowledgement of your progress of learning. And so speaking with them with each assignment, letting them know what you're thinking about something, and then getting their spin on it as well, helps you develop as the further you move through the module. Yeah. They're a great point of contact because they're marking your assignments.
Yeah. And what would you say to students who may feel anxious about their tutors? I mean, some students will have their tutors now, some may still be getting allocated to their tutors. What would you say about making that first point of contact?
My tutors made contact with me first, and that was, you know, really lovely, because they want you to write back and they want you to tell them about you and what you're studying, you know, what you want to study towards and what your aspirations are. So again, it's about, you know, do that because they want to hear from you, and it will also help you, I think, on your journey if they understand what it is you want to achieve.
Yeah, I was very lucky as well that the tutors sort of made contact and sort of sent emails and sort of introduced themselves and whatever. So it was just a case of when I needed the support and I needed the help, I could then from the back of that email actually contact them and say, oh, you know, this is the thing that I'm trying to do and whatever. And sometimes you've sent an email off and you think, oh, right, okay. And then you think of something else and you think, well, I can't bother them twice. Well, you know, do send the second email for the second point that you need clarifying. You know, even if they're in quick succession, because the tutors might be able to then understand a bit more about what you're trying to achieve, or, you know, what bit that you're not clear about or whatever as well. So, you know, do use that. Definitely.
Oh, that's brilliant. And Rob, you've said while achieving a good mark for assignment certainly feels nice, the most important thing is learning something new and enjoying that process. I think that's really, really brilliant, because again, it relates to that whole idea about comparing yourself to other people.
I liked that one of the students said that they hope that they are a happy student.
Yeah.
I think that's really important, because you need to be enjoying the process of learning. And if you're not, then maybe rethink what you're studying. And that's fine too.
Yeah.
And my advice on tutors is, when you're introducing yourselves, be honest about what your circumstances are. You know, I'm a parent, I'm working this type of job, I'm facing these kind of health issues. Because these circumstances, if your tutor's aware of them, they can be extra supportive in terms of, you know, responding in a certain manner, or giving you an extension to an assignment if you need it. It's really important to have some sort of personal relationship with your tutor.
Yeah. Brilliant, excellent. Well, that's great. I'm going to take a quick trip to the hot desk, and also we'd asked you at home what things you'd like to know about, and I'd like to take a quick look just to make sure that we've got those covered in today's programme as well. But HJ and Michelle, how's everyone?
Well, it's really good discussion going on in the hot desk at the minute, and lots of shout outs to the three on the sofa. So thank you very much. Tips and tricks appreciated. Calvin's been giving us some really good tips, saying if you get stuck, leave it overnight, come back to it the next day. Davin has tried reading to his dog, but he said the dog gave him a quizzical look. And we also had to keep our giggles quietly when he talked to us. Thumbs up the mindfulness, and was telling us about how his Buddha statue helped him. So we also have Susan, who has said that she used light candles, and then she lights candles, and then she uses a breathe app that helps you slow your breathing and calm yourself down. So I think some really good suggestions here from different people about how to relax. And a lot of comment about not competing with one another. You're here for yourself. Michael has said, oh no, it's Patrick, wasn't it? Enjoy the journey. You know, enjoy the journey. Get the most out of it that you can. Work hard. So lots of good tips and tricks, and really, particularly, my apologies, it's Gemma found you very inspirational with the be gentle with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like weight loss, isn't it? You know, you can have a number, like a TMA score. That doesn't say anything really, apart from it being a number. You know, so excellent. All right, well, thank you all so much. That's been incredibly useful and has obviously gone down really well with everyone at home. Good luck with all your studies, and we will hopefully see you again soon. Right, we're going to take a quick break now, and Michelle will be very happy with all of that conversation about positive mental health, because we're going to have a session on Stay Well, Study Well next, where Michelle will be joining me and Emma here in the studio. But before that, we're going to show you a video called The Big White Wall, which is about one of the sources of support available to you as an Open University student. So join me for 5 for that next session. See you in a minute.